Paul, Heritage. Today we're looking at a existing Heatmiser system in London. We're going to be doing some fault finding, and then also we're going to be upgrading it to a more modern system. Okay, so I'll just show you around what we've got. So we've got underfloor heating in this room, and this is the thermostat for this room. Yeah, so this is a Neo, part of the Neo range, one of the older ones. And then you've got another one here, which I don't think this one's Neo compatible, but this is a mains, a 240 volt thermostat. So that does the underfloor heating in here. And then we've got this one here, which again is a part of the Neo range, but I think older models, which I'm assuming does the hallway underfloor heating. Then upstairs is radiators. So 3 rooms have radiators, and we did have a wireless thermostat that was just sat here, which is downstairs. And then you've got this warm up electric underfloor heating controller, which does this in here. There's a towel rail there in the bathroom as well, which does work, but we don't have any control over it. So this isn't a huge installation, but it is split into quite a few different circuits and things. So what I've seen so far, I've been here like an hour, this is kind of what we've found so far. So none of the 4 zone valves are labelled up at all. So I'm just kind of like putting some rough labels, you know, like just numbers and bits and bobs on them. That's for the underfloor heating. So I'm kind of doing it as I go, so I know what everything is. So the hot water is switched by, well, I've not worked out what it's switched by yet. What I've worked out so far is the immersion heater supply is faulty. I'm getting like a 10 volt reading across neutral and earth. This is the timer, the switch which was labelled off peak, and then which there is no off peak supply in the house. And then this is the timer, so there's no power to the isolator through this or to that. And all the MCBs are on in the consumer unit, so we've got an issue there with that. We've got an old UH8 wiring centre. This is just permanently open, so I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's doing at the minute. I need to find that out. This one, so this wireless receiver here, I was assuming the thermostat was connected to, and all these lights were just permanently on, all 3 of them switched on, which opens this zone valve and fires the boiler up. So I'm assuming that is for the upstairs radiators. Again, I've not proved this yet. So I can manually open that zone valve with this, but this thermostat here doesn't control anything. So I'd expect to turn this up and then this fire up. It activate channel 1 on there and then open this zone valve, which it doesn't. Only if I manually do that. So this actually isn't connected to that. So these were just manually overridden when I got here, and that's the only reason why they're getting heating upstairs. This is doing nothing. So that's what I've found. What else? Right, so all the flow meters are all clouded up. None of the pipe work is labelled. None of the actuators are labelled. I don't know where they're going, so we're just going to open in a few at a time and then checking with the thermal imaging camera. So I started testing this room, so I thought I'll just turn the thermostat on and we'll just see if it activates the panel and it opens the zones, and we'll see if the zones go to the right area just to start with. So at first when I turned it on, this did work and it did zone zone 3 on the UH3. Whereas if now we isolated the power, turned it back on again, and then it's just not working since then. So if I put the temperature up beyond what it is in the room, push tick, this should click, and then a symbol should come on, a little flame symbol should come on. So that did work. As soon as we isolated the power, turned it back on again, this just doesn't work anymore. So that's set now at 30 degrees, the room's at 22 or whatever it is. Yeah, and the heat is not coming on. So that has just now stopped working while I'm just checking it. So maybe this has been intermittent the whole time, I don't know. So I'm just in the middle of trying to manually then open these valves now and fire the boiler up. This switch and time clock was doing this circulating pump, which it circulates hot water around the pipework. So when you open a tap, your hot water is fairly instant to the tap. Now this isn't a huge installation. I personally would say it's not justified having this pump anyway, but it was on timer and it was only on from 7 till 8. And I've asked the guys, I said, do you use this? Do you know? They said, I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna take that off and then I'll leave the cables there, obviously. And then if we ever need to put a controller back on that, we could just stick a Heatmiser controller on it rather than this old school dumb clock. So yeah, we're gonna disconnect that, lose that. I've still got to find out what this is doing. We found out that this is the supply for the whole system now. Yeah, this is the immersion heater that isn't functioning. That's the timer for the immersion heater, and this whole circuit isn't functioning for whatever reason. Yeah, I said, have you ever used the immersion heater? Do you know it works? And he said, we don't even know what that is. So your immersion heater is a very good solution for if the boiler ever goes faulty and you have to call somebody out to come and repair the boiler, and it might take a couple of days, they've got to get parts, you know, whatever. You'll be able to switch this on and then get hot water to your tank, so at least you have hot water in the meantime while the boiler's being repaired. Now this said off peak, which I scribbled out, but it was kind of spelt peak, P-E-E-K, off peak. So I'm assuming whoever wrote this on here didn't know what that means, but there is no off-peak supply into the house. Usually you'd have off-peak tariffs with your energy supplier if you're normally on 100% electric, so you're doing storage heaters or some other form of electric heaters, or you're heating a water tank. So this would normally be on a timer like this to switch the immersion heater on and off at them periods when your electricity is cheaper. This house doesn't have any separate energy tariffs, it just has the one energy tariff, and it's got gas as well. So that timer has been put there for no reason at all. I don't know why that's even been installed, but they don't use the immersion heater. They never have used the immersion heater. This was a brand new refurb when they bought it, so this has been installed fairly recently. It's probably just incorrectly, so that's an indication of maybe, you know, why this isn't working as well, because if that's not been done right, you know, what else hasn't been done right? So I need to check that circuit back to the consumer unit, because at the minute I'm measuring 10 volts across neutral and earth and live and earth, which could potentially be a problem. We don't want people getting a shock. No RCDs are operating or anything like that. So yeah, I need to check that out, because I don't want, you know, I've highlighted that now, so I need to check that whilst I'm here. So that's where I'm up to so far. It's a total mishmash of random unlabeled isolators and time clocks, controllers, faulty thermostats, disconnect thermostat not connected to the wireless receivers, faulty thermostats, towel rails that come on and off as in, you know, with zero control, radiators that don't have any control, just manual override. Also, the way this has been wired is indicative that the person who did it doesn't know kind of what they're trying to achieve, really, what the goal is, or what the actual wiring centers and controllers are there for, the connections. So here you've got like 3 twin and earths coming into this box. So you've got 2 twin and earths, which I'm assuming they've run a circuit in around to all the thermostats. So that's like a radial circuit, just doubled up there in the live and neutral connections. And then they've used the 3-core as the switch pair back to the wiring center. Now you take your supply from the wiring center, that's the point. So you just run one cable to the wiring center. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. Run a 5-core in, you'll have permanent live, permanent neutral, and then a switch pair, and then an earth. Or you can use a 4-core, permanent live, permanent neutral, pinch a live from the live here onto one of the connections, and then that then gives you an outgoing live switch supply to the wiring center, and then you have an earth. So 4 cores, you can still do it with a 4-core cable. I always put a 5-core cable in anyway. So yeah, a separate supply being run to this is unnecessary. You can see in the connections as well there, them strands that barely twisted together and hanging out of the connections, almost pulling completely out, and very close to touching the neutrals as well. So if a few of them little strands were just floating around in the back, they could quite easily, if just one of them copper strands was near that neutral, that could potentially arc and blow the fuses or blow the breaker, you know, whatever's protecting it. So yeah, again, another poor job there of wiring connections in this controller. But the way this has been done, this is a 4-channel controller, which is quite cool actually. I like this. Control 4 channels from it. 4-channel programmer controller. So here it says Zone 1 is controlling the water, 2 underfloor heating, 3 radiators, 4 bathroom radiator. Now that is not the case, because this is the controller receiver that is doing the radiators upstairs. That is not connected via this controller. This isn't doing anything to do with the radiators. That is supposed to be, the thermostat is supposed to be receiving the signal, switching this, and then that in turn opens the zone valve and fires the boiler up. So these labels here would be very helpful if they were correct, but I've found out so far that they're not doing what they say they're doing. I'm going to remove as much of this as possible. I'm going to remove all that. This messy, there's a lot of cables like in here, I need to find out what's going where, and then there's the wiring center that's, you know, there's a lot of cables going into that as well. So we need to get everything back stripped out, and then I can start manually opening one zone valve at a time to try and find out what areas they do. And then also we can fire up the underfloor heating a zone at a time. Okay, this is day 2 now. I'll show you what I found yesterday and where we're up to. So, let's have a look. I'll start with these first. So the thermostats had too many cables at them, unnecessary like circuits that had been pulled in. So yeah, we've kind of like got rid of them cables that weren't needed, and then I've tested all the 3 cores that come over to here just to confirm, you know, the polarity, you know, confirm that which cable was which, because none of them are labeled up, and make sure that the cables are okay as well. Tested the cables as well to make sure that they're okay to use. So now we've got just the 3 core at each one, all identified at that end now. So the only one good thing about this installation, I'd say, is that they've put cables in to the thermostats. That's like the only good thing that they've done, because like most of these installations we go to, it's just wireless thermostats everywhere, and the buildings had a full refurb, so there was opportunity to put cables in because it was back to brick and everything's been fully refurbed. So if you're going to be doing a full refurb or rewire, or it's a new build or whatever, put cables in to the thermostat points and don't use wireless thermostats, because they're fine, but they have their own, they have other issues that these ones don't. So the wired thermostats are a lot more reliable. So that's the kitchen thermostat. So today we need to power the heating up and start identifying circuits, proving what everything does, because I didn't even get around to that yesterday. So this is now just the cable, the 3-core again for the lounge, and then 3-core for the hallway now. And I've just kind of cut them cables off in there. So yeah, we identified the 3 cores. So this is the new UH8. So there's the 3 cables that come in from each thermostat. So I labeled all them up, and then I know zone 1 is lounge, zone 2 is hall, zone 3 is kitchen. So we know what they are now. Because the installation was so bad, I just had to rip everything completely out and start again. So as you can see, everything that was here, all these isolators, all these time clocks, immersion circuit there, was got a fault on it, there's no power to it. So we've just kind of put a blank plate on that because it's not doing anything. And all the breakers are switched on in the consumer unit. The board is full, so there's no extra space in there to install a new immersion heater. So everything is switched on in there. I've checked that there's power coming out of all the MCBs and there's nothing coming to here. So there is no immersion heater, there's no backup. So I've just got rid of all that, and then I recommend that they have a new immersion heater installed, circuit installed. So that's the only thing that I've kept there, and then I've kept the power supply as well. So another thing in there, it says water heater, I think it says. So the water heater circuit is the boiler circuit, but it's not just doing the boiler, it's doing this water softener unit. So it's doing that plug socket there, and it's doing this utility cupboard as well. So everything's labelled up really poorly in the consumer unit. So the electrical work, just in this small area that I've seen, is pretty bad. So I've removed everything that I can. And then I'm going to recommend that this have a 100% condition report done on it, because it's not the best. So we've removed everything from here, kept the power supply that does this area here, which is like utility boiler cupboard type circuit. So we've put a new FCU on there, which supplies our new Wago wiring centre. I've still got more cables to go in here, but you can see this is a lot neater than the previous joint box. So we've rewired the cable to the boiler there with a 5-core flex. I've got put some clips on this yet. Just had to get the hot water up and running last night, and all the heating's completely switched off last night. So just had to get them some hot water on. So we rewired this because this had 2 flexes to it. So instead of using the correct core cable, they only had 3-core flex, and he needed an extra core for a switch live for this. So they'd run 2 flexes, and they went in the wall there and down to that big messy joint box with everything else. So I've just rewired that with 1 5-core back to a new joint box here. We've got a power supply to our new joint box, and then we've got a cable going down temporarily to this joint box here, which does the tank zone valve, and then it also, the tank stat is wired into this box, jointed onto that cable, and then that cable's connected in here. And then we just powered that up last night, and there's no control over the hot water. It literally, the tank stat controls it. Once it drops below a certain temperature, it just opens a valve, fires the boiler up and heats the tank up. So just so we've got some water in the meantime. So all these other, the underfloor heating, zone valve, these two we've not identified where they go yet. They were all like banjo stringed across here. So we've just disconnected all this. Now these aren't going to reach to our new controllers. None of this stuff does. So we're having to join every zone valve tank start, zone valve, pump I rewired last night. So that's the new pump cable there. So I put a new 3-core flex to the pump last night because again that wouldn't reach to the new UH8. So yeah, what we've got here then is this is completely disconnected at the minute. It's got no power to it. So we've got to wire the power to this. Basically, we need a controller for this zone valve. We need a controller for that zone valve. This zone valve needs to be wired into there with the pump. And then we need a power supply from here to there. And then we need power to the controllers as well, which are then going to be doing all these. So we've got quite a lot of wiring to do today, which wasn't a part of the job really. I didn't plan on rewiring all this. So yeah, that's where we got up to yesterday. So what we've done so far then is we've got controllers on, boxes on, even and wiring. So this one's going to be for the hot water controller. This one's going to be for the towel rails. This one is going to be for the radiators upstairs. So 3 controllers on there. We've got the wiring in now for the UH8. And then these are just joints where we're jointing the valves to the cables I put in. And then we have to join down here the actuators on the underfloor heating because they won't reach to the new box. So yeah, that's what these 2 cables are for there. They're just going to be jointed onto them. So that's everything in where it needs to be. We've just got to connect everything up now. And then we can start running and testing the system and adding the devices and, you know, getting it up and running online. So we've identified what these are now because I've been running the heating today. What I've done is just put a link in. So this is the boiler enable, or the switch live to the boiler. So we just put a link in to enable the boiler, and then I've manually opened these valves to let the water flow, and we can identify radiators and towel rail. So that's done now, so we know what all these zone valves do. Now we know that, we can connect them into the relevant controllers now. Okay, so day 3 now, so I'll just show you where we're up to and what we've done. Yesterday we got all this connected apart from the actuators, which I'm not connected because I'm currently identifying them because none of them are labelled up. So I've got a couple of cables there that are extended out of the UH8, which are going to join onto them once I know what circuit is what. So I'm just currently got the boiler running. I've got one of the thermostats on. Oh, it's just switched off actually because I've just been pairing it on the app. Bloody hell. So I've just got the lounge thermostat running just so it enables boiler, opens the zone valve, starts the pump. So we've got the underfloor heating valve there open in a minute. The pump is running. I have currently got this circuit manually open, so I've just popped. I find it better to do this rather than connecting cables up assuming that they're correct. So I just pop them all off one at a time manually, and then we'll go around with a thermal imaging camera to identify each circuit, and then at least I know I'm connecting it to the right zone. And while these circuits are heating up, I am going around the house, adding the thermostats and then adding everything to the app and getting it all programmed and set up. So yeah, last night, so we've got everything connected in there now. We've got a controller for the hot water, we've got a controller for the towel rails, we've got a controller receiver for the upstairs radiators. So these themselves have their own programming built into the unit, and then we just connect this directly to the hub. So we're able to program the on and off hot water times from this, which is a Neo HW I've used. And then on this, I've just used another Neo HW for the same thing. We don't need it as a thermostat, we just need it as a programmer. So the towel rail is controlled via this controller here, so they can program what times they want the towel rails to come on and off. And I've chose not to use a thermostat for a specific reason, just a programmer. So that controls the towel rail individually. They just have one towel rail in the bathroom. And then this is the wireless receiver, which is connected to the radiator circuit, so it does all the first floor radiators. So we need to pair a NeoAir to this and mount that upstairs. So this is a wireless receiver, so all the rest of the stuff in the house is hardwired apart from the top floor radiators. So yeah, joints all done there yesterday for the zone valves. Cables all come round here for the pump. This is glued down. I didn't want to put a fixing in this floor because you've got mains water pipes coming in through the floor, and then you've also got all the underfloor heating pipe work going through here. So I've stuck down the cables there with a pad with some adhesive, so that's fixed in position. This is fixed in position with adhesive. So what we did last night, none of the heating was connected. I'm only starting on it today. Just doing specifically the underfloor heating today. So I put these timers on last night. They were all working, but he had no control over them because they weren't set up, programmed or anything. But because it's so warm, doesn't matter anyway, so we just had to leave the hot water on. So what I did last night is just left this in the timer on position, permanently on, and then this is doing the work. So the timer comes on, or it's just permanently on, whatever. You've programmed it to be on at whatever time. It opens this valve here, and then it switches the boiler on, fires the boiler up, but it goes through the tank stat first. So the power comes out of the controller, goes to the tank stat, through the tank stat to the valve. So once this is satisfied, the temperature is satisfied, and this is set at 60, I think. Once it reaches 60 degrees inside the tank, that will switch off, and then it will isolate this, close the valve, turn the boiler off. So just so they had hot water last night, I've just left that in the permanently on position, the controller, and then we can put some programs in today. So that's where we're up to last night, and I am now working on this UH8 underfloor heating, connecting all the devices, and then I'm going to run and test and commission the system and make sure it's all functioning correctly before I go. So we've mounted the thermostat in here. This is the new Neo V2 there. We've got a new Neo V2 there, and Neo V2 there doing the hallway. The customer already had a Neo hub in, so we're just reusing that, deleting all his old, because he had multiple sites on there, so we just reusing that. So I've just paired this, which is a NeoAir V3. So NeoAir is the battery wireless product, so it takes 4 batteries. This, so the NeoAir V3 range is the newer range, which apparently the batteries last a lot longer, because the other ones were pretty crap. So as there is no cable to upstairs for a thermostat, we have no choice but to use this. I prefer not to use wireless stuff really, because it's not as reliable as hardwired stuff. But this is a very good solution if you don't have cables. So I've paired that now. You've got the little symbol there saying it's connected to the hub. Yeah, and I've just done my checks to make sure this switches this receiver. So this is connected to this RF receiver, and then in turn that is connected to this radiator valve, which opens and fires the boiler up. So let's have a quick look. I've got it connected to channel 1. So this, you can do it's got 3 channels on this, so we can do a heating channel, say radiators, underfloor heating, and we could do hot water with this one receiver. So it's a 3-channel receiver. So I'll just turn this up past whatever the temperature is currently reading. Tick. A little flame symbol on indicating that we're calling for heating. Now we're just waiting for channel 1 to come on. There you go. So this zone valve will now open, which it is doing. And then as the boiler's already fired up, because we're running the underfloor heating for testing, the boiler's already fired up. So that's just open that, and then hot water flows upstairs to the radiators. So we will turn this back down again. Little flame symbol's gone off. Channel 1 off. Zone valve closes. So we know that's functioning correctly, and so that's good. That has to go upstairs somewhere, so we'll pick where to put that in a bit. So I'm just pairing all the stats to the system now, so I'll just show you one. So I've just pushed add thermostat. So let's see. So this is going to be Hall. Next. Now it's going to ask me to push some buttons on the controller. Yeah. So on the controller, you want to push and hold the tick down while it's on the power symbol till setup's highlighted. Then you push setup tick twice, while setup's highlighted. Then that little indicator will flash that'll show it's connected. So that is now connected, and then it shows up on the app saying device found. Great. So I'll just finish just to show you what we've done. So I haven't done the kitchen yet. So for radiators, first floor I've done. Lounge I've done. Hallway you've just seen me do, which is now connected. And then kitchen I need to also do. Right, I've set these up on profiles on here. Different profiles, because underfloor heating doesn't work efficiently when you program it like radiators. Radiators get very hot very quickly, whereas underfloor heating is limited to whatever the temperature regulator is on the manifold, which in this case is 50. Then it's got to get through thick concrete and tiles or carpet or whatever. So the underfloor heating, generally you leave it on non-programmed. So if this was an entire underfloor heating installation, I could just go on settings, program mode, and then I could put it onto non-programmable if I wanted, and that would just put everything into non-programmable. But as we've got a mix and match of hot water controllers, underfloor heating and radiators, we can't put it on non-programmable, because that means they wouldn't be able to program the radiators. So I'm just putting it on 24-hour. Come back out of there. So what I do in this situation is you set profiles up. So you go on profiles at the bottom, and then create a profile. I've created two profiles. One is for underfloor heating and one is for radiators. So if you click on the one I've made for radiators, I've done your on-off periods on at 6:30, off at 9:30, on at 4 o'clock in the evening, off at 11 o'clock in the evening. And you can add, there's another there, next level, so you can add more times on-off periods if you want. So that means I've set a profile specifically for radiators first floor. so we can use that programming for them independently. And then if we go on the ground floor profile, which is underfloor heating only, I've just set it to be on continuous. So I've just set 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. 24 hours at both at 21 degrees. And that's it. So they won't be switching on and off. They'll just be keeping the room at that temperature. So we'll just set the temperatures at 21 degrees. And if the temperature ever drops below 21 degrees on any of the ground floor, underfloor heating, it will just bring that back up to 21 degrees in its own time. So that's what I do when we've got a mix and match of areas that require programming and areas that don't require programming. So you can see, you'll click on lounge and then it'll say current profile used, underfloor heating, ground floor, kitchen. Current profile used, underfloor, entrance, current profile, underfloor, radiators first floor, current profile, radiators first floor, and there's your program settings there and times. So that is what I have done to set this system up. Now we've got to add an electric underfloor heating thermostat to it for the bathroom, electric underfloor heating. Then we need to add the hot water controller, and then we need to add the towel rail controller also. So that's what we've done with that. What I would recommend is, as we're using multiple controllers, so we're using a V2 hardwired, we're using a V3 wireless, and we've got a Neostat E for electric underfloor heating. We also have well, I don't know what I've got with them, where the manual is for that, but I've got it somewhere. So we've got Neostat HWs as well. So all the installation instructions vary from unit to unit. So it's important that you keep the right manuals. So I've just put some labels on here so they know what manual is doing what. We've had one of the circuits on for a little while. Let's see if we've got anything coming through yet. Oh, there we go. Oh. This. It takes ages to come on, and then once you've got it on, when you're in the middle of using it, it goes off. All right, so hallway, we've got nothing showing up. Oh. Did I see something then? Or was it just that? Yeah, it was probably like a bit of a delayed glimpse of that, wasn't it? Right, so there's nothing going on in there. Right, so circuit 1 on the underfloor heating manifold is lounge. So circuit 1 is this one. I label these up circuits 1, 2, 3, 4 from the pump side. So from the left, moving rightwards, I always refer to these as circuit 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm pretty sure that 2 of these circuits were doubled up when I got here, so probably the last 2 there I'm guessing were kitchen, because it's a bigger room, I think. So yeah, we've identified that one now, so we'll pop the valve back on there, and then we'll pop this next one off. These are really hard to get off. This water softener thing's right in the way as well. God, I need both hands for that. We have proved the hallway now, and the hallway is linked to the downstairs toilet. So there's no control over the heat in the downstairs toilet basically. So yeah, it's on the hallway circuit. This is quite a common thing that we see, that this room should be isolated, I personally think, and have its own thermostat, because this room is going to take longer to get to temperature, because you've got a front door there where there's potential draft. You've got hot air that's going to go upstairs. So this is going to be banging out a lot longer, this thermostat, to try and to get this room to temperature. Whereas in the meantime, if this door's shut in here, this is going to be a sauna in there, because that's just going to get to temperature a lot faster. No windows, smaller room. So a lot faster than what this room will do. So it's, yeah, you've got like, to have the hall heating on, you have a sauna of a downstairs toilet. But so it's very common that, I see it quite a lot. So yeah, we've identified that last, and I'm just labeling these up now. So you've got like your circuits 1, 2, 3, 4. I've just labelled the actuators up according to which circuit that they go on, and then you can see I've started there lounge on with the stickers on the pipe work. Got lounge and hall toilet, which I've done. Now I'm just confirming the other two, which I'm assuming a kitchen, because there's nothing else. So yeah, so we've got one that's coming through that now, isn't it? So you've got one half of the kitchen there that's heating up, and then the other pipe work. Circuit 4 should do this side of the kitchen. Right. So I've just finished the joint there, which is for all the actuators, and it's the joints that go to the UH8. So I've just done that. I've identified all the underfloor heating loops now, I've labelled them all. Alright, so on my notes here we've got UH8 zones, lounge zone 1, entrance, hall toilet zone 2, kitchen zone 3. So at the minute we've got zone 1 active. And then I've done the circuit identification as well on here, so you always know. And then I've done my test results for my electrical checks that I do because I'm working on the circuit. So let's see, so we're looking for entrance hall zone 2. So we'll turn that one off because we know that's right now. Zone 1's gone off. I just heard the underfloor. I just heard the zone valve then switch off. So that zone 1 heat enable and valve and pump gone off there. Let's see, so entrance hall, we know that that is allocated to zone 2. So I'll turn that on. So zone 2 has come on now. So we've just switched zone 2 on, which is entrance hall and toilet. So this one is going down slowly. So we want this actuator now to pop up, as that is connected to the hall and toilet pipe work. So we'll wait for that to come up. So I'm just going to work my way through the entire system now and activate every controller that I've connected on here and just test that they're all doing what they should do. So we're going to do the bathroom one now. So I have this old warm-up controller on it. You've got your connections in the back there, which is your floor probe. Then you've got your supply in, which is isolated from this FCU below. And then you've got your load out on this flex here. So we're going to replace that with this Neostat E. And then this, we can add this to the system, and then it will be able to control his electric underfloor heating also with the rest of the heating in the house. So the reason I've chose to put the towel rail on its own timer and not thermostat is because you've got two conflicting heat sources in here. So this is outside the bathroom reading the temperature of the floor via the floor probe. So if the heating's on in here and it's at 2021, and say if I mounted a battery thermostat here which controlled the towel rail, this would be reading the room temperature is already at 21 and would never bring the towel rail on because the room's already at temperature, whether that's because of the sunlight coming through the window or whether that's because of the underfloor heating. So that wouldn't necessarily control the towel rail accurately. If that was the only form of heating in the bathroom, then I would put a thermostat inside the bathroom for that, a battery one. But in this scenario, it already has a heat source, which is electric underfloor heating. So we've put this on the Neo HW downstairs, and then we just put this on to come on for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening to dry the towels that they hang on there. And then also in summer, if you don't want the heating on in the house at all because it's too hot, you've always still got that capability of controlling the towel rail completely separately. So it's always good to separate your towel rail circuits, or even better, each towel rail have its own individual circuit pipe work to it. And then we could say you had 20 towel rails in your house. We could give each towel rail its own controller, and then you have the ability to switch every towel rail on or independently then. So for example, if you had 5 en-suites that were rarely used, you could just turn them towel rails completely off. Underfloor heating in the en-suites that was rarely used, you can turn all that off. So say you only use 30% of your house, you can have that 30% of the heating on and isolated the rest of the house. But then also, you, like I mentioned before, you might not want the heating on because it's too hot, but you do want your towel rails on. So yeah, piping them separately, I think, is very important.